Welcome to the place where fear finds you. So sit back, put on your headphones, and remember some stories don't end when the video does.
Working the night shift always sounded kind of chill to me. No traffic, fewer people, quiet hours. You just show up, do your thing, and go home before the sun even rises. That's exactly what Marcus thought when he got hired at a 24-hour gas station just outside a small town. It wasn't anything fancy, just a little place off the highway with 3 gas pumps, a few aisles of snacks, and a coffee machine that hadn't been cleaned properly in years. But the job was simple. Stay inside, keep an eye on the store, restock shelves and watch the register in case someone actually walked in during the night. Marcus didn't mind being alone. He kind of liked it. He'd bring a book or watch movies on his phone when things got slow, which was basically every night. He'd listen to music, text his girlfriend, snack on candy from the shelves, which he'd pay for, of course, and drink way too much coffee to stay awake. It was peaceful. Nobody bothered him. Nothing ever happened, at least, not until that one night. It started off just like any other shift. Marcus clocked in at 10 p.m., nodded to the day guy who looked half dead and ready to go home, and got settled behind the counter. He cleaned up the spilled sugar near the coffee machine, counted the cash drawer, restocked the gum and lighters by the register, and then started scrolling through his phone. By midnight, the store was completely quiet, lit by buzzing fluorescent lights that made everything look a little too pale and sterile. Outside, the parking lot was empty. The gas pumps stood like skeletons under cold, flickering overhead lights. The road was silent, no cars in sight, just Marcus, the hum of the fridge, and the occasional pop of the ice machine. Around 2:30 a.m., something weird happened. The automatic sliding doors opened. Marcus looked up, expecting to see a customer. Maybe someone driving late, stopping for gas or coffee. But no one came in. The doors opened, then slowly closed again. He waited a few seconds. Nothing. No movement. Just the soft buzz of the lights and the faint smell of burnt coffee in the air. He leaned over the counter and tapped the screen of the security monitor. It showed the outside camera's 3 angles, all perfectly clear. No car, no person, just empty pavement and the road beyond, barely lit by the station's streetlight. Maybe it was a glitch. The doors weren't new. They'd stuck before. Sometimes they'd slide open when a moth flew by, or when the wind kicked up just right. Still, Marcus got up and walked over to them, just to make sure. He pushed the doors open manually, stepped outside, and looked around. The air was cold and still. No breeze, no sound. Just that weird, thick silence that only happens really late at night, like the world itself is holding its breath. He went back inside and checked the door sensor. It seemed fine. He locked the doors, just in case, and returned to the counter. A few minutes passed. Then the tapping started. At first, he thought it was just his imagination, a soft clicking noise, like someone gently drumming their fingers on a hard surface. He paused his video and listened. Tap, tap, tap. He stood up slowly, looking toward the aisles. Tap, tap, tap. It was coming from somewhere near the back. He moved carefully, walking down the center aisle between chips and candy bars, eyes scanning every corner. There was no one there. No customers, no animals, nothing. But the sound continued, steady and calm, like someone playing with their nails on metal dot. As he got closer to the back storage area, the sound got louder. He reached the end of the aisle and turned his head toward the door leading to the emergency exit. That's when he saw him. A tall figure stood outside the back door, just behind the glass, not moving, not even swaying. He was dressed in all black long coat, maybe a hoodie underneath, and his face was completely hidden in the shadow. He looked unnatural, not just tall, but wrong. His arms hung too low. His head was tilted just slightly to the side, like he was listening for something. Marcus froze. the man didn't move. Then, slowly, he raised one hand and placed it against the glass. Tap, 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 tap. Marcus couldn't move. He felt a deep, cold fear growing in his stomach, crawling up into his chest. His throat tightened. His body wanted to run, but his legs wouldn't move. He finally forced himself to step back, bumping into a shelf full of energy drinks, and nearly knocking it over. The tapping continued, slow, steady, deliberate. He rushed back to the front of the store and grabbed the phone. His hands were shaking so badly he could barely punch in 911. When the dispatcher answered, he struggled to speak clearly. His voice cracked. He told them there was a man outside the back of the store, dressed in black, staring through the emergency exit and tapping on the glass. The dispatcher asked if the man was trying to break in. Marcus didn't know. He wasn't doing anything, just standing there. But somehow, that made it worse. The dispatcher said officers were on the way and told him to stay inside, lock the doors, and not confront the person. Marcus nodded, even though no one could see him, and whispered, "Okay." He ducked behind the counter and watched the back camera. The figure was still there, motionless, hand pressed to the glass, not looking around, not trying to open the door, just watching. It felt like forever, but the police arrived about 10 minutes later. Flashing lights lit up the parking lot. 2 officers entered the store, while another checked the back. Marcus stood up, shaken but relieved, and pointed them toward the back exit. But when they checked it, the man was gone. No sign of him. No footprints. No disturbed snow. Nothing. It was like he had vanished into thin air. One of the officers walked around the back with a flashlight, while the others inspected the emergency exit. That's when they saw it. A handprint on the inside of the glass. Marcus stared at it, unable to speak. He hadn't opened that door. No one had. The officers didn't have an answer. They checked the cameras again, reviewed the footage, but nothing showed the man entering the store. He never moved from the outside of the door, but somehow, that handprint was on the inside, perfectly shaped, long fingers. Too long, they wrote a report, took pictures, and told Marcus to call if anything else strange happened. Then they left. Marcus didn't sleep when his shift ended. He sat in his car until sunrise, engine running, doors locked. When the morning guy arrived, Marcus handed over the keys and quietly said, "I'm done." He didn't come back the next night, or ever. He found a job at a coffee shop in town, day shifts only. He still doesn't know who or what he saw that night, but sometimes, when he's alone and it's quiet, he swears he can still hear it. Tap, 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 tap. Night shifts at the hospital weren't supposed to be scary. That's what Kylie always told herself. Even though the hallways felt different after midnight. Colder, quieter, and not the good kind of quiet. Either the kind that made every footstep echo too loud and every shadow looked like it was moving when it really wasn't. But Kylie didn't mind the work. She was used to being alone. Her job wasn't stressful. She didn't work directly with patients, just handled paperwork and phones at the front desk. She was basically a receptionist for the hospital's least busy hours. It was her 3rd month on night shift, and nothing weird had happened so far. Most nights passed by in a blur of forms, filing cabinets, and bad coffee. The occasional emergency would roll in, but that usually happened upstairs, or in the ER, on the other side of the building. Where she worked, it was mostly dark hallways, blinking screens, and the hum of machines that no one had touched in years. But one night, something happened that she couldn't explain. Something that stuck with her long after she stopped working there. It was a Thursday, around 3 a.m., when it began. Kylie had just finished inputting some lab records and was about to grab a cup of tea from the break room. The place was dead quiet. The nurse on duty was upstairs checking on a sleeping patient. The rest of the hospital was like a ghost town. Kylie didn't even hear the usual distant footsteps or cartwheels. Just silence. She stood in the kitchen for a few minutes, waiting for the kettle to boil, looking at her phone. Her eyes were tired. Her brain felt foggy. It was one of those shifts where time moves slowly and everything feels like it's underwater. Then, she heard the elevator. That soft ding. She froze. No one had pressed the elevator button. She hadn't heard anyone walk by. She stepped out of the kitchen and looked down the hallway. The elevator doors were open. Just sitting there, waiting. She walked toward them, slowly. The lights above the door blinked, like they always did, one of them flickering every few seconds. But the elevator was empty. No patient, no nurse, no one. She stood in front of it, confused. Then a cold breeze passed over her skin. Not like air conditioning. This felt ... different. Like the air around her had changed. Heavier, thinner. She took a step back, suddenly feeling the urge to leave the hallway. As she did, the elevator doors closed. Then, without anyone pressing a button, the elevator started. Going up, she watched the floor numbers change on the little screen above the door. Second floor, third, fourth, third, fourth. Then it stopped. Floor 4. That was impossible. She stood there for a moment, staring at the number glowing above the elevator. Floor 4 hadn't been used in years. Everyone in the hospital knew that. It used to be the psychiatric wing back in the 1980s, but after a fire damaged part of the floor, it was closed down. Too expensive to renovate. Too much damage. The hospital just sealed it off. No lights, no power, no staff. The doors were locked, no patients, nothing. And yet, the elevator had just gone up there. She walked back to the desk, trying to calm herself down. Maybe it was a mechanical error. Elevators can be weird sometimes. It didn't mean someone was up there. She sat down, still holding her tea, and stared at the screen on her desk that showed the internal phone system. And then the phone rang. She jumped, almost spilling her cup. The screen lit up with a call from inside the hospital. From room 417. She blinked. Room 417 was on the 4th floor. Her hands started shaking. She slowly picked up the phone, pressed the green button, and put it to her ear. "Hello," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Static. Just soft, crackling static. She waited. Then, a voice, faint, breathless, like someone whispering into the phone from far away. "I want to come back," it said. Then silence. The line went dead. She lowered the phone and stared at it for a long time. She didn't know what to do. Call the nurse. Call security. Call who? She sat frozen for several minutes, listening, waiting for something else to happen. Nothing. Finally, she got up and walked toward the stairs. She didn't want to go up to the 4th floor. She knew it was a bad idea. But something told her she had to look, had to see for herself that it was just a glitch or a prank, that she wasn't imagining all this. The nurse was on the 2nd floor, checking a sleeping patient. Kylie found her near the nurse's station and quickly explained what had just happened. To her surprise, the nurse didn't laugh or tell her she was tired. Instead, the nurse's face went pale. She nodded slowly. "I've heard things too," the nurse said, "but I didn't want to say anything. You'd think I was crazy." They went up together. The 4th floor was dark, cold. The air smelled like dust and old paint. There were no working lights, so they used their phones to see. The hallway was still boarded up, just like before, with wood panels and a chain lock over the main entrance. They stood there, in the silence. Kylie's heart was pounding. She walked closer to the door. That's when she saw it, carved into the wood. Near the lock was a single word. Her name, Kylie, scratched in deep, like someone had taken a key or a knife and etched it slowly, carefully, into the surface. She stepped back, fast. The nurse didn't say a word. She just stared at the carving, then looked at Kylie, her face full of confusion and fear. They left the floor and didn't go back up there again. Later that week, Kylie submitted a request to be transferred to day shifts. She didn't give a reason. She never worked another night shift. A few months later, she left the hospital completely. To this day, she doesn't know what happened that night, whether it was a spirit, a memory, a warning, but she still hears that voice sometimes, in dreams or in the quiet moments between sleep and waking. I want to come back. Danny had been working night security at a furniture warehouse for almost a year. It wasn't his dream job or anything, but the pay was decent and the hours worked for him. No customers, no bosses breathing down his neck. Just walk around every hour, check the cameras, fill out a log sheet, and stay awake until morning. It was the kind of job that felt boring most of the time, but not too bad if you kept your mind busy. He usually brought a thermos of coffee, some snacks, and a podcast or two to pass the time. The warehouse itself was massive. Rows and rows of furniture beds, mattresses, couches, chairs, dressers lined up like a showroom maze. The place was dimly lit at night. Only a few emergency lights stayed on, and even those flickered sometimes. There were cameras set up at the main corners, but some of the darker aisles barely showed anything. Every creak, every hum of the building, settling echoed like a whisper. But Danny got used to that. The silence, the cold air, the way the shadows played tricks on his eyes if he stared too long. He'd even started to enjoy the solitude, until that one shift changed everything. It was a Wednesday night. Nothing unusual had happened all evening. Danny had already done 2 patrols and was watching the monitors from his little office tucked near the loading dock. He was eating chips, filling out his hourly log, and listening to a crime podcast when he noticed something strange on camera 3. The mattress aisle. One of the beds had a blanket that looked different. Most of the display beds were made perfectly tucked, pillows fluffed, blankets folded neatly. But this one, the blanket looked bunched up, like someone had been lying in it. At first he thought maybe he just hadn't noticed it earlier, or maybe someone messed it up during the day, and no one fixed it. It didn't seem like a big deal. Still, something about it bugged him. The bed was toward the far end of the warehouse, near the emergency exit spot where the lights were, especially dim. He sighed, stood up, and grabbed his flashlight. He walked through the main corridor and took a left down the mattress aisle. As he got closer to the bed in question, he noticed it did look disturbed. The blanket was pulled toward the foot of the bed, and one of the pillows was half off the side. He fixed it quickly, smoothed out the blanket, put the pillow back in place. No big deal. Then he walked back to the office, wrote it down on the log, just in case, and sat back down. 30 minutes later, during his next patrol, he passed by the same aisle again and froze. The blanket was messed up again. This time it was worse. It looked like something or someone had crawled underneath it. There was a visible lump under the fabric, raised right in the middle of the mattress. It wasn't big, maybe the size of a small person curled up in a ball, but it was there, and it wasn't moving. Danny stood still for a long time, holding his flashlight tight. He took one step closer, then another. He was just a few feet away when his radio crackled, just random static, but it made him jump. He turned back toward the lump on the bed, and it was gone. The blanket lay flat again, like nothing had ever been there. He slowly backed away and returned to his office, heart beating a little faster now. He checked the cameras again, rewound the footage, but the camera angle didn't catch the bed clearly. It was too dark, too far from the lens. He told himself maybe his eyes were playing tricks on him, that he was tired, overcaffeinated, bored. But then came the 3rd patrol. This time, he wasn't alone. As he walked down the center of the warehouse, he heard something behind him. Footsteps, soft, barefoot. He stopped. The sound stopped, too. He turned around. No one there. He kept walking, flashlight scanning the rows of furniture. He told himself it was the echo of his own steps, bouncing wearily off the walls. That had to be it. Then he passed the mattress aisle again. The blanket was back to normal, except now one of the pillows was missing. He walked over slowly, looking around. The pillow wasn't on the floor, wasn't under the bed. It was just gone. He heard something shift behind him. He spun around, light flashing across rows of dressers and lamps. But again, nothing. He was starting to panic. He hurried back to the office, locked the door, and stared at the monitors. All of them looked normal, except camera 3. For just a second, something moved. It was quick. A flash of movement, like a figure slipping between the beds. Too fast to catch clearly. He paused the feed, rewound, played it again. There it was, a shape, low to the ground, moving fast across the corner of the screen. He felt sick. He didn't know what to do. Call the police. What would he say? Hey, I think a ghost messed up one of the display beds. He'd sound insane. But then, something hit the office door. A soft thud, not loud, not hard, but enough to make him jump. He stood up, walked to the door, put his ear against it. Silence then. Scratch, scratch. It was coming from the other side, low, like fingernails on the metal surface. He backed away, heart pounding. He grabbed his keys, opened the emergency log, and wrote a single line. I'm not staying. Something's in here with me. He clocked out early, didn't turn off the lights, didn't check the beds again. He left. The next day he quit by email. No explanation. Just said he couldn't work nights anymore. A week later, one of the daytime employees sent him a message on Facebook. She said they found a pillow stuffed inside one of the drawers in the children's furniture section. No one knew how it got there. No camera showed anyone moving it. Then she added something else. You know that guy from the news, back in the 90s? The homeless man who froze to death in that warehouse. My uncle used to work there. He told me they found his body on one of the display beds. Said it looked like he'd made himself comfortable. Just lay down and never got up. That was over 20 years ago. Danny never replied. He still dreams about that night, about the mattress, the whisper soft footsteps, and that invisible weight shifting beneath the blankets. He never worked night shifts again.